One of these days it's good. I know that's okay, but it's still whoa. Ain't like a cholo.
I know I'm like Miss Prim and Proper with this this pillow.
I love it.
Oh man, I don't even know what time it is. Sis.
We're at 10 minutes late.
Oh, that's not awful.
No.
I thought that it was a lot more than that.
Yeah, no. Well, all I could think about was today, because I'm like, I just made sure I was here an hour and a half early. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be early. And then I'm like, oh man, I'm supposed to go get that charger. Oh man, it doesn't have the cord. Oh man. And then of course I ran out of gas on the way.
Of course.
I'm like, it's gonna be so nice when we have everything set up. So nice that all we have to do is just come here, relax, and everything like that. So I think the first thing we should do.
What we forgot last time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to lead it?
I'll let you lead it. You're the guy.
Alright, ready? Dear Heavenly Father, we just come before you and we just praise you for the fact that we can't even do this. That you give us the opportunity and the will and the knowledge to just be a guiding light for people that come to watch us, Lord. And we thank you for this amazing opportunity, and that you just give us the knowledge and the wisdom and the perfect thing to say that'll just touch people's hearts, Lord. I pray for just a smooth sailing from here on out, and that you just look over us, and that everything that's being brought out today is all your word and all your will. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Hey, so we are doing S.O.S podcast. Welcome to our podcast, where we're going to be talking about real world issues as people not of this world. And this week's episode is going to be Judge Not, which it seems simple enough, but I think a lot of the times isn't as simple as we make it, especially when it comes to relationships with people and trying to keep those relationships with people. And for those who are going to be watching on YouTube, we are doing this live on TikTok also, so we're going to be doing it live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And this is a way for you to jump in and be a part of the conversation, because we want this to be real world issues. We want people to be part of the conversation and to be giving us their thoughts on those same issues. So, like I said, today is Judge Not. And this is actually a suggestion from a friend that he suggested doing this because he's had this very issue about feeling judged by other Christians when he tries to hang out with them. And frankly, I've kind of felt that, but honestly, I think I'm the one that people actually feel judged by, sadly enough.
Right. Well, I think that comes along, a big part of it comes from when as soon as you tell people that you're a Christian, they instantly think you're going to judge them because you are a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like too, especially with Judge Not, that's a non-believer's favorite thing to say when you're talking to them about anything.
Right.
Not calling them out on their sins, but pointing them out.
Right.
Again, there's a difference between calling them out and pointing them out as well.
Right.
You're not like, ha, you're sinning and you're a sinner. It's like,
right.
Well, this is a sin. I'm going to call a spade a spade.
Right.
So, and that's their favorite thing to say. Well, judge not. And it's like,
right.
I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. And it gets hard because there are the non-believers that are definitely, they 100% feel that way. And then when you have other Christians who see other Christians, like Christian on Christian friendships, or even acquaintances that you want to be friends, and they are afraid to hang out with the Christians because of that very reason. And it kind of makes you wonder, okay, God called us to be a light, to be different. Why, if we can't even be that way for people who understand His Word, what are we doing as Christians to be that example, to show people like, and to really show relationship. Like, God wants a relationship with us. He died to have a relationship with us. And he wants us to have a relationship with other people. And I think that's the hard part, is when you don't make an effort for the relationships, then you're not really showing Jesus that way anyways. Like, Jesus sacrificed himself to build that connection with us. And I feel like there's a like dueling issue with the Christians being afraid to hang out with other Christians, and even non-believers being afraid to hang out with Christians. Because in some ways, like, I do see how some Christians, and I've probably done it myself, I've just gotten in a mood, and I probably have not been the nicest to people. And I've seen other Christians act like almost holier than thou kind of thing, and they put people down.
Mm-hmm.
And there is that issue. But then on the same side, you have people that just feel convicted because they feel convicted.
Right.
And that's a hard thing. If somebody's trying to keep you accountable, then it's like, well, you're going to feel that conviction. And I'm pretty sure, like, with me, I've had a lot of friends growing up that say they're Christian, but they go out and they'll drink and they'll party and they cuss a lot and, like, they do all those things. And I think nothing less of them.
Right.
Like, I just figure they have their own struggles in this world. There's a reason for it, and it's not for me to judge
Right.
why they're doing it. It's my job to love them. I mean, yeah, if the opportunity comes up, I might say something like, why do you do this? Or, like, bring it up in a loving and gentle manner.
Right.
But at the same time, I've never even brought it up to friends, and they stop hanging out with me because really I have no clue why. Whether it's just we don't have stuff in common, or they feel their own condemnation or their own conviction because I don't drink, I don't cuss. Like, when I'm invited to those things, I am the odd man out. I mean, not all the time, but I mean, I can be pretty fun for a corny Christian, but
a sober corny Christian. You gotta try them out sometimes, you know.
Casting Crowns. Does anybody hear her? I love that song. Yeah. Does anybody? Have you heard that one? It's a good one, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll have to check that one out for sure.
Yeah.
What's funny too is you're saying all this stuff about how people, like, when you're having a bad day, it just reminds me of, like, you know, when we watch, you know, and obviously being a Christian doesn't mean you're a movie star, but sometimes you're always on display, kind of like a movie star is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when a movie star or somebody famous goes through something horrible, they're always like, oh, I don't like this person now, they did this, and they're acting this way, and so forth and so on. But they still create great movies, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like with us, we still are believers, we just had a bad day. And that kind of goes back to the opening, you know, statement of real people. I'm a real person.
Yeah.
Just because I say I'm a Christian
Right.
doesn't mean I'm perfect. I don't want to be perfect.
Yeah.
And if you want to be perfect, good luck.
Right.
You're not going to get there, but you're good luck, you know?
Well, and Christians of all people know how much they need Jesus.
Right.
It's like we should be the first ones to say, I'm not perfect.
Right.
Like, I I consider myself the worst of the worst. Like,
even when you don't cuss and don't drink, you still
Yeah.
consider yourself the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that goes back to just looking at yourself. People are always, you know, that's just probably an opportunity for people to see themselves.
right.
And, you know, it may just be that true conviction of like, okay, yeah, I see this person, I want to be like this person, but I need to get rid of this sin first. But I'm going to
Right.
cast out this person because they're making me feel guilty.
Right.
Instead of, and that's the biggest thing too, is finding the difference between guilt
Mhm.
and conviction.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Guilt is just like, okay, I know the sin, I know what I'm doing is wrong,
Mhm.
but I'm still going to do it anyway, so I feel
Right.
guilty.
Yeah.
Conviction is working to not want to do that anymore.
Right. And a good word with the difference between condemnation. Because we were actually just talking to our friends, well, yeah, both of them, friends the other week, and she said the best thing. It's Pastor Lan and Aletha. And Aletha told us, she was saying that a lot of people hear the word judge and they think like, you're condemning me.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, only God can condemn people.
Right.
He's the only one that can give a verdict. There might be people who point people out and say like, they did this, they did that, whatever. But that's all words, because only God has a power to issue a verdict.
Mm-hmm.
But what she had told us, and I love the like term she used. She's like, what we like to call it is that we are fruit inspectors. They inspect the fruit of other people.
Oh, nice.
The fruits of the Spirit. And I'm like, that is so true, because you're supposed to look at other people's fruit and see what kind of fruit they're bearing. Are they bearing love, gentleness, compassion, patience? Like, are they showing this in them, or are they showing rotten fruits?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're around somebody with rotten fruits, that begins to rot you.
Right, because the fruit flies leave from that to go to you to try and
Yeah.
deteriorate yours.
Yeah. And so we're supposed to look at those kinds of things. But a lot of people, I think, can take it as like, you're judging me.
Yeah.
And one of the most interesting things, and I have some of the verses written down that I found earlier. So there's a lot that talk about like not judging others. So I was thinking the theme of tonight's topic really coincides with Matthew 7 verses 1 through 5. This is in the English Standard Version, and it's, "Judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." So you see a lot of verses like that are talking about like, don't judge. And there's a lot that I can really get into, like the nitty gritty, especially from my GCU days, that like taught me how to like pick the verses apart and look into like each and every word and
Right.
stuff like that. But for right now, I thought it was interesting that in Proverbs 31 verse 9, it says, "Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy." So in Matthew, it's saying, don't judge your brother, take out the log in your own eye before you can help him. But in Proverbs, it talks about judging righteously.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the same theme, but funny enough, the Greek word that's used in Matthew, one of the only descriptions that it doesn't have in the Hebrew word of judge is condemnation. Yeah. So as I was looking into that, because I know Aletha had told me about how the word used for judge is like different translation-wise than what people think that it is. So I was looking it up earlier, and that was one of the things that I really noticed was condemnation is the only one that wasn't used in Proverbs that says judge righteously. That, like, then in Matthew, that it talks about condemnation and all of that kind of stuff. And then I looked at another Hebrew word, and again, for judge, and again, it was talking about all the acts of a judge, but did not use condemnation to describe that Hebrew word. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, so if you're given like what the laws are and you have a police officer, they're going to enforce those, but they're not going to be the one giving the verdict.
Right.
That is
You still have to
the
go before the
judge's.
judge,
Yeah, that is the judge's purpose for issuing the verdict, for whether condemning them or allowing them into heaven.
Well, it's like the police officer is showing you this is where you're speeding in a no speed zone. You continue to speed, you'll get a ticket, and then you'll have to go before the judge.
Right.
You know, that's the same thing. Hey, dude, you're speeding, you're sinning.
Right.
I'm just telling you this before you have to go before the judge.
Right.
You know, I think what's really cool too to think about as well, especially thinking of the log and the spec, you know, verse, is a lot of the times too, when people see the log in your eye and see like, wow, he was able to remove that sin from their lives.
Right.
They can definitely help me get this little speck out. You know?
Right.
So, you know, just being able to do that and focusing on your log will also help people understand, like, okay, they understand what they're going through, their sins, their own judgment in themselves. So maybe they can help me get through my own sin, my own judgment against myself.
Yeah. I think that's exactly how it is. And everything that I've seen about, like, not judging other people, it leans a lot towards basically don't come to people in a manner that is like holier than thou.
Right.
If you're going to come to somebody, and there's actually one of the verses, I believe I wrote it down, actually two of them that really stood out to me about this. That's, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. And that's in Ephesians 4 verse 29. And then there's, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Galatians 6 verse 1. And so it's like those directly talk about, like, if you're going to say something, don't just say it to put someone else down, like to put yourself on a higher pedestal. Don't be trying to like climb that pedestal to put yourself up here while shoving this person down.
You're using them to get up so that you can be like, this is why you're wrong.
Right. Yeah, to make them feel better about themselves, when in reality you're going to feel better about yourself if you just deal with the log in your eye.
Right.
Like, deal with that. And when you get to the point that you become one of those people that, like, okay, I understand what it's like to be lowest of the low. Like, I know that I suck. Like, I just want to come to you to help you.
Right.
It's done in gentleness. It's done for a purpose.
Well, it even shows them as well, like, I'm not showing you that you're lower. I'm showing you I'm lower than you. Like, I get it.
Right.
I get why you're doing it. Like, I get that it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, I struggle with this. This is what I struggle with. This is what I'm doing to work on it. If you would like to do the same concept,
right.
Let's do it together. And that's even nice too, because, even having with those Christians that don't judge, those are the best ones that are able to help keep you accountable. Because, like it says, they're going to be gentle with you. You're going to work at it together. It's like, oh man, I got my car dirty again, but let's wash it together.
Right.
I'm going to go grab a towel and I'll help you wash it.
Myself, I'm sitting here going like, you're not wrong. Like, you have a valid point.
Right.
Like, I cannot get mad at you for pointing out something that I legitimately know I need to go to God about.
Right.
And it's like, that's how Christian relationships, I believe, should work. And unfortunately, it's really hard when you have those hurts in your heart. Like, you're dealing with very complex people. Like, people are complex. So if you have somebody that might be trying to shove their sin, but in the process shoving onto other people and making it hard to come around them, that's really hard. Then if you have somebody that's feeling really guilty of their sin around other Christians, it might be really hard to go around them, and so they just stay either by themselves or with people that they feel they should be around because they have more in common with them, because they feel like, oh, this person is too good, they're going to judge me for this. Granted, those things do actually happen. Like, there are the people that just feel guilty when somebody's not trying to judge them. And you got Christians that judge other people in the way that they're condemning them rather than giving grace. I mean, our whole discussion on grace last week, like, how many times does God give us grace for our wrongdoings and just gently walk with us through our hard times and try to help us come out on top in the most, like, gentle and loving manner without completely condemning us.
Right.
And I think that is really hard to do as a Christian, especially when you have, like, hurt from other people.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, with, another analogy for this is like, it's like going to someone carrying 3 boxes, saying, hey, you got that extra box, let me tell you how to carry that one, when you're having troubles trying to carry your own boxes.
Yeah.
And then you also can't take on their carrying. They need to carry that box themselves and figure out how to get through it.
Yeah.
Carry it up the stairs.
Right.
Because it's never easy.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Matthew said, shoot, I have a hard time hanging out with heathens. I'm fine with other Christians. LOL. Yeah. It's hit and miss with the Christians that you find. And I think the area that you're in is kind of hard also sometimes. Like, we live in a very bar city. So
resort town, yeah.
Yeah, even the Christians sometimes are very much babes in Christ. And so if you're able to find those, like, really authentic, like, on the same walk Christians as you, it makes it a lot easier, because you do find the people that can hold you accountable. You find the people that will keep you on the trail, like Hunter and Katie, like you, like, there's people that it's not a huge a huge friend group, but here you're not really gonna
Well,
find
I think
a lot
another
of those.
good thing too is to have those earthly people, but in the end, we still need to remember who we need to truly trust in. Because it's hard to trust people, because it says what in Psalms 118:8, you know, don't put trust in man, but put trust in God.
Right.
You know, it's good to have the people to help you keep the trust, but don't just rely on those people, because they will fail you. Christians included.
Yeah.
You know, Christians will fail you.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to going to Him.
Right.
The true judge.
I think that is really important, actually, because there's been so many times that, like, I think about it and I'm like, even I myself have not been able to do for others even the way that I've wanted to do for them. It's like my heart is totally there. It wants to help people. It wants to be there for whatever hurts that they have. But sometimes it's really hard with life and with my own shortcomings to do that and be that for people. And it's like we're not trustworthy. I can say to the extent of, like, you can trust me to come to me about stuff I'm trustworthy, right. But at the same time, like, if there's stuff going on in life, like, I may not all the time be trustworthy to rely on. Like, and I'm one of those people that it's like I get busy and I'll maybe answer someone's text like 2 days later, and I'm like, oh shoot.
Are you the one that has the
sorry.
red bubble that's got like 100 text messages on it at all times?
Pretty much. I have to keep them unread so that, like, I can remember to go back to them. Some of them I'll go into and I'm like, I'll scroll through messages trying to find someone's name in my recent messages, and I'll see a message from someone that I didn't reply to, but it was already read. And I'm like, oh shoot, I'm so sorry. Or like,
yeah, on that point, 2 days later, let's go ahead and get at it.
Or Instagram and Facebook Messenger, like, those are really bad also. Like, I constantly have a lot of messages on Instagram. Sometimes it's from Katie because she spams me with reels.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh man, I really want to be able to watch those without being distracted. So I'm
so you can
wait
and take it and stuff like that.
Yeah. So.
I saw this video where the person had a text, and they had, like, on the big screen on their truck, and it showed text messages, and it said like 1,200 text messages.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, what did it say? These people stress me out, give me anxiety, and I was like, I couldn't imagine having to go. I mean, I know I have a lot of emails, but that's a different story.
Yeah, I know it's a fine line between, like, wanting to get rid of those bubbles because I don't want the notification bubbles there, but at the same time, like, I don't have time. I'm sorry, I don't have time. And most of the time right now, it's because of Smokey.
Right.
Because I'm trying to stop him from spilling Sprite all over me or knock me in the head unconscious or something. But
I could just see that. You're on the ground and then you wake up.
Yeah.
Oh, kisses now, huh, buddy?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That is pretty much him, especially right now in this stage. He's pushing every button that he can. Yep. He's a good boy though. He's really come a long way. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. I think that not putting your trust completely in people, and I think it's super easy to crave that.
Right.
Because God has made us as relational beings.
Right.
He's made us for relationship with each other, relationship with Him. We want and we crave those relationships, but just like everything, balance. Like, you have to have balance to balance out, like, having healthy relationships that you don't put too much reliance in, and then relying on God for all the other needs. Like, it's knowing I can have these relationships, but they can't be my everything. And I know, like, in today's terms, it might be like boundaries and like creating healthy relationships, things like that. But essentially, it's like everything we do as humans, we can take it too far.
Right.
Just like when you have that little piece of chocolate.
I was just saying, does it ever turn into one little piece?
I'm going to have a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a little bit more. Next thing you know, you're having chocolate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
And it's like we can take things too far so easily.
I mean, Hershey bars, do you actually break off each piece?
No. I take like a row at a time. Are you kidding?
It's like, why even do this? You know, we're gonna eat the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well just take the whole thing or break off the rows at a time so you don't melt the rest of it while you're waiting to eat it. But
Right.
that's
Maybe that's why Hershey Kisses are the best, because you have to tediously unwrap each one.
that's true. That's
So.
true. I got these like chocolate covered fruit flavored stuff. Yeah.
Those are in my trunk right
I'll
now.
like grab a handful, but those I'm actually able to just grab a handful and be like, okay, I'm eating this handful, that's it for the night. And I'll do it at
One
the end of
handful?
the night. Yeah.
I do like 6.
Yeah, we have those little like sundae bowls, like ice cream sundae bowls,
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
white ones. And if I need to, I'll just put like a handful in that and like take that
It's
and
the
like.
dark chocolate ones, right?
I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're so good with a little bit of fruit to it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Squirrel.
I know. That's often. But who doesn't like the talk about chocolate? I know there's people who don't like chocolate, so I can't say who doesn't like chocolate.
Talk about heathens. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
You heathens.
No
What
chocolate.
are you if you don't eat chocolate?
I knew someone that didn't like chocolate.
I'm pretty sure Will didn't like chocolate.
Oh.
Not a ton. He ate it, but he didn't like it.
Oh, I know who it was.
That smile. I don't know that I want to ask.
That's Tommy.
That's ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Getting back to
Yeah. So.
Christian friendships.
Oh, that's all.
Getting back to Christian friendships. I would honestly love to know more about what people have actually encountered with feeling judged by other Christians. Because really most of me can only speculate.
Right.
Like, I've honestly had pretty good relationships with Christians for the most part. Well, actual Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Not people who say that like they're Christian and then like don't show any fruits and then like later they're saying like they're actually agnostic or something.
Have you had those Christians that become more Christian because they hear that you're a Christian, but they're not doing it for their own relationship?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've encountered a few of those.
Yeah.
Several of those.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too is, you know, you want to be very fruitful for them, but they also need to bear their own fruit.
Right.
You know. I mean, it is a good thing because not feeling judged, not being, and you know, it's kind of like saying normal people, typical Christian, all this stuff. So, not being a typical Christian and being able to say, I don't judge you because I know who the judge is.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand my sins.
Mm-hmm.
If I can understand mine, I can understand yours. But I'm just letting you know this is a sin. It's your sin, not
Right.
mine.
Yeah. You can do what you want regardless. And I am going to love you through it
Right.
regardless.
Like the old saying, I hate the sin, not the sinner.
Right.
You know, and right back to, we're not condemning you, we're just pointing it out.
Right.
You know, it's like,
We're trying to
look at
help.
my sin, look at this baggage that I have that I'm learning to balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, you know, and that's the nice thing too is sometimes you don't even have to point it out
Right.
to you know, to real, not, I shouldn't say real believers, but to people that truly want to follow in their own relationship and their faith,
Mm-hmm.
is them basically Can't help it. Dang it. Let's try and get past it. It's in my back pocket, but yeah.
Ooh, shiny.
Oh, now I lost my
I get it. I get it.
Click. Dang it. Dang it. In case you were wondering, I got a phone call.
I can hear it vibrating.
Yeah, that's why.
In his pocket over here.
Right. So, now I forgot the tangent I was going on.
I know, it completely distracted me too.
Squirrel!
If anybody on there remembers what we were just talking about.
What were we talking about? I can't remember. Dang it.
Man.
It was going to something big. But, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Remember, don't put it in your back pocket.
We're probably going to come up with it here soon after we
It's
get
gonna
talking.
be one of those aha moments.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be in the middle of another deep discussion as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah, but helping people overcome because you know exactly what they're going through. Like, you've been there.
And it's funny too because I keep going back to and I think why it's so good as far as not innuendos, but parables is the gym situation. You know what I mean? Like, you could be obviously I'm not a gym person, but I need to work out a little bit. But if you go to the gym, you're not going to go in there instantly know what you need to do. You know what I mean? And it's not you as somebody that goes to the gym all the time to point out what they're doing wrong, right?
Right.
But you can say, hey, that's...
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, you got the blueberry ones? Oh yeah.
I have the
I've got the
blueberries
red.
also.
Yeah. I think that's what's in my truck right now.
Thank you very much.
Oh no.
This is not a paid partnership.
You gotta share.
Oh yeah.
What?
Well, mine's all the way in the truck, and I have to go.
Show me a Bible verse that's.
Oh, speaking of going to the gym, let's eat some chocolate.
Don't go to the gym. Are you kidding?
But that,
I have a Malvo for that.
Right. That's bad enough. Okay, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna just take it. Okay. Oh, they're cold too? They're cold?
Everything's
keep them
in the fridge.
because Cody gets everything.
But, and that's, a good way to point it out as well is knowing that, okay, I don't know how to work out, but I want to work out. I want to build up my fitness, my relationship. So, us as Christians, we're not going to go over and tell them what they're doing wrong. And if they come over and ask us, which I know you know just as much as I do, that happens a lot too. Like, I'm dealing with this sin, I'm dealing with this struggle, I'm dealing with this workout. Can you show me how to do it?
Yep.
Because I can see that you obviously understand it and understand where I want to get to.
And if somebody does see somebody struggling with knowing what they're doing, I mean, a lot of times, and it maybe wouldn't necessarily be all an effort to I want to talk to them to point out what they're doing wrong. It might just be a way for them, they notice that person, they might have said something to them just to start a conversation, and then they build this relationship there, and then they feel free, hey, can I show you some things, or something like that.
Coming at it gentle.
Yeah,
That's
you
it.
have to build that foundation and that relationship of you have to know I'm coming at you in love.
Right.
And that's
I don't
the
want you
hard
to hurt
part.
yourself. I don't want you to get hurt.
Right.
That's the biggest thing is we don't want you to get hurt. So.
And I think it's hard sometimes because I've had a hard time almost this whole time talking about Christians or who I thought were Christians or they said they were Christians. People are at different parts of their walk constantly.
Right.
Sometimes you find those people that are just on that same path. You're running and it's oh hey, what's up? You come up with someone that's right there on the same track as you and you understand each other so well.
Right.
But then at the same time you get the Christians that aren't on that same walk.
See, and what's funny about that is if you think about it is we as Christians sometimes still see those people, so we're running to catch up to them. We get to them, and it's almost like we're paying too much attention to them that we trip without paying attention on our own on our own trail. It's the same trail, but we're paying too much attention to them that we're not focusing on ours, and we end up stumbling and tripping, which is the same in our sins. We're not focusing on our own sins because we're trying to keep up with these other Christians, and we end up stumbling harder than when we were just trying to focus on ourselves.
Right. Or we're looking back. Oh yeah. Which analogy? The working out, probably? Yeah, I think that's one we were just on. My brain cannot keep up with this stuff right now. But when you're running, like, and you look back at someone, like, it's literally like my puppy. Like, he'll do stuff and he's running and he'll look back and he'll go wham, like face into something, or he'll like do a little stumble trip, and I'm like, really? You just did that? Like, and he's so cute, like he's just a goofball. But you can hear him in there right now.
Oh, is he in there?
Well, not in Carter's room. He's in Grandma's.
What's up, Carter? You don't have to be quiet. It's okay.
No, you have to be like a mouse. No, I'm kidding. But when you look back on those people, and I think that's what one of the verses was kind of talking about, when keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted.
Right.
So right there, it's talking about, like, be careful looking back like that.
Right.
Because you can easily be put back in that spot.
Right.
When you stumble and it catches up to you.
Well, it's like when I tell people too, I love telling people this all the time, is, you know, when they're thinking about the wrongdoings and everything they've been through and whatnot, and I'm always like, do you drive your car only using your rear view mirror? You know, we don't. Why don't we do that? Because we crash.
Yeah.
Right. It's not to say we wouldn't look at the mirror every once in a while to see where we've been or if there's anybody coming up behind us, but we don't do that. So why would we do that as?
Right. Yeah, that's not what you do really for anything. Like, it doesn't make sense in those situations. Why does it make sense in life?
Yeah.
To not just keep focusing and really on, like, where you're at. Like, kind of the future, but not a ton, because when you look to the future, like when I was running, and since we're talking about running a race,
right.
I was getting to where I was getting pretty good at running. I was doing it often. And, you know, I have asthma. So it was a lot of training. Like, it was a lot of, like, getting my body into, like, what it needed to be into to run further distances. And making sure that I focus on my breathing, the way that I'm running. Like, I looked up all these things about how to run so that I could run and get the cardio that I needed, but not have an asthma attack, like 2 minutes into running. And it was crazy because what I found was, like, it goes from your toes to your knees, to how you hold your stomach, to how you hold your chest, to how you hold your head. Like, even just me running, like, with it down or with it up is going to make a difference in if I have an asthma attack.
Really?
Yeah. So, like, down is going to close it off. Up is going to close it off. I need to make sure that I keep it at the neutral position, or else it's going to be a lot harder for me. My stomach, if I don't engage my core, it's going to make it harder on the rest of my body, and my body's going to have to work harder and bring in more air for running. The more air that comes into my body, that foreign air is what causes the asthma attack.
Wow.
So it's crazy. Like, from the toes up to my head, I had to pay attention to how I was holding myself while I was running to make sure that I could run a longer distance. And taking that into running the race of life, it's like, if I look back, 100%, like, I'm going to exhaust myself. I'm going to go into a full-on asthma attack.
Right.
If I focus on the future, if I focus on what's ahead of me, I'm going to be going, am I going to be able to make this stretch? Like, am I going to have an asthma attack up here? Like, I'm then taking the focus off of, how am I holding myself? Like, are my feet right? Is my posture right? Am I holding my head right? Because I start thinking about what's up there, I'm going to be like, moving this around, like, not even paying attention to what my head's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the same way with how we hold ourselves as Christians. If we focus on how we hold ourselves, how we position ourselves with God, that's going to help give us, I think, the endurance for
Yes.
finishing out our race.
Yes.
And it's like, wow. And I know I have a hard time with that. Like, looking at the past, looking at the future, like, oh, what's my future going to hold now? Like, this or this or this happened. Like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then, of course, first comes to my mind, like, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has worries of itself. But it's like...
Well, and then it all comes back to, even so, 29:11.
Mm-hmm.
You know the plans I have for you.
Yep.
To do good and not to do evil. To prosper. Like, these are the things. So, if we just focus on the steps at hand instead of what's ahead of us or what's behind us, we're going to have, like you said, the endurance to finish the race.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing when Christians try to come to other Christians. It's, one, your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
But two, it's like there has to be some, like, mutual understanding of, like, I'm coming to you because I know how hard this can be.
Mm-hmm.
This race is hard. It's going to be hard. But if we position ourselves in God just right, we're going to have that peace. We're going to have that joy. And it's not easy to get back there. I know I'm struggling with it myself. Talking about, like, not acting holier than thou or, like, we're better. I have a hard time finding joy. Like, that is just my thing. And I don't know what it's from. I don't know why I got this way. I don't know what it is that I've been focusing on that, like, I just lost focus of God's joy. But that is something that I've been praying for almost consistently for, like, a year or two, if not more. And it's like, I know for a fact that this step in my past is a hard thing for me. I know that those are really hard things to overcome and not go back into that pit. It's like losing Zach. One of the things that came to my mind was like, well, what is the purpose of life? We come, we live, we die. Sometimes you don't even live a full life. You live a short life and you die soon. Like, you get kind of cynical sometimes. And then it's like trying to refocus on what is important. Because we get to go to heaven. We get to see the people we've lost. We get to continue life in perfect bliss.
Right.
What is there to not be joyful about?
Right.
Like, and that's the stuff that it's really hard sometimes to overcome those kinds of things. And those are the kinds of things that it's like, I will 100% be real about that. Like, I'm on a live and this is going to be on YouTube. Like, talking about something that's really hard for me right now, that, like, I'm not perfect at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not perfect at relationships. I'm not perfect at anything. But I'm definitely willing to be held accountable for stuff. And I think that's something also that's really hard, because I have found the difference between being held accountable and being manipulated and walked on. And I think that's a hard part too with relationships. And I think that's why some people are afraid of certain friendships, and that's why we have to be fruit inspectors.
Right.
Like, I saw, do you know Jonah Wiley, I think his name is, on Instagram and TikTok? He's like, I think he does youth ministry somewhere. I think it's youth ministry. It might just be just plain ministry.
Okay.
He's younger, like our age, maybe even younger than me. But he had done a reel that was Adam and Eve in the garden, but it's just captions basically.
Okay.
And it shows Adam and Eve eating the fruit and them asking God for clothing. And God says, "Who told you your name?" And God says, "Who have you been listening to that's not me?" And like that hit me hard. And I'm like, okay, I need to be discerning. And I think that's probably one of the key words is discernment. Like, I need to be discerning where it's coming from. And I think that's something that, like, we have to take on for ourselves also. Instead of just, like, saying, oh, you're judging me, this or that, I think as somebody who feels guilty and conviction, if you're hearing these things, and these people are saying these things, and it doesn't line up with the Bible, you have to ask yourself, whose voice am I listening to? And I think it's super easy to get distracted by the voices of everything else, especially because you want to make those connections.
Well, and it's even like, like the old saying, the snake oil. Like, they're giving you this thing, you think it's, good and fruitful, and it's not.
Right.
It's like, like even when Jesus was tempted, look at all the stuff that you could do. And it's like, because, Satan knows Scripture just as much as, more than we do.
Right.
And that's where it comes back to the manipulators being able to show you, like, oh, yeah, look at how it says here. Like when we were talking, like, non-believers love using that. Judge ye, or do not judge, yet ye be judged.
Right.
Lest ye be judged. And
right.
It's like, well, there's so much more to that scripture. You're just giving me, you're trying to cloud my statements here with this little bit that you know. And
trying to hit at the core of who someone is. It's like they're attacking who we are and trying to discombobulate us and say, like, you're not as good as you think you are. And it's like, look, I'm not even trying to be good. I'm just trying to be God's child.
Well, it's like we're going back to the running analogy. Somebody's running behind you. Hey, you're doing it. Hey. And they're trying to get you to turn around.
Right.
So you stumble so they can get past you.
Yeah. That is a great point, because that also goes back to the pedestal analogy. Like, it's their way of excelling in front of people to make themselves feel bigger, better, whatever. And
and the funny thing about it is, and not to interrupt you,
no, you're good.
Is, it's not a race between me and you.
Right.
This is a race between me and getting to the finish line.
Yeah.
Nobody's first place here. We're just both running to the same distance.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who gets there first. All that matters is that we get there.
Yeah. We should be cheering on those people.
Right.
And that goes back to how you approach someone. Because I've had people talk about me and say things that were judging. And the funny thing is if it came to me personally, I'm one of those people that would truly reflect on it. But the thing is sometimes it's not even taken to us to even deal with it. And they just want to put a judgment on you to other people so that they feel better about whatever.
Yeah, well, it's funny too, because even in that aspect is, I'm gonna show, and we've all had these types of people in our lives, Christian, non-believers, everything, that will literally show you your sin so that you will be distracted from theirs.
Right.
I'm over here feeling guilty, but hey, look it, they've got brown shoes on, and I've got no shoes on, but look at their shoes are wrong, that's not what they should be wearing.
Right. Yeah.
They should be in flip-flops and, barefoot like us, because we're at the beach. And it's like, no.
Right.
Each person has their own abilities and their own life to lead.
Right.
If you're feeling convicted, don't put that on other people.
Yeah.
Don't call them out in the race to make them stumble.
Yeah.
Just continue to run your race.
You got so many yellers.
We got noisy doggies.
Yeah, people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we got a couple of people joined. I think we have 3 viewing right now, but yeah.
That's alright.
Yeah.
Remember?
If it was only for one. Yep. But yeah, I think that's a great point, is that there are the people that do try to distract from their sin by pointing out your own, like yours. You get it. I'm like, I don't know how to say that better, but it makes sense with the context. But and it's like my mind goes to because I have a mediator mindset. Like all growing up, I've always been the mediator of like the family. I've been kind of like the oldest but middle, like of all my cousins and stuff. Okay. So like my brother, my cousins, like yeah. I'm the younger sister, but yeah, younger to my brother, but like with all the cousins and stuff, like when we would get together for family stuff, it's like I would be the one that would take on that mediating role. And so for me, I always go to like, okay, what's the solution? Like, how do you even fix this? And almost to a fault, because if I think that there's no way to fix it, then I go into almost like panic attack mode.
Because then you truly take it on for yourself.
Yeah, because then I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this, and then like my mind just glitches and I just kind of shut down. But and that's something that I'm working on, like to make sure that like, okay, take it one thing at a time. I don't have to have all the answers right now. I have people to help me. Like, it's not the end of the world if I have to take a minute to breathe and think about it. But with things like this, my mind goes to like, well, how do you approach those situations? Like, how do Christians become more comfortable being around other Christians? And I think that's kind of the hard thing, is because like any relationship, it takes 2. And like my favorite thing was, I went to a private school growing up, at least 3rd through 8th grade, and one of the things that we talked about in a class one time was about marriage. And people were like, well, if something's wrong, like, who do you go to? How do you know, like, to go to the wife or to the husband? Like, if they did this wrong, and that goes back to Adam and Eve in the garden, like, putting blame on other people. We all do that. We want to put blame on other people. Well, you made me feel like this, like, you did this, whatever. But something that our pastor talked about was, he always goes to the man first. And he goes, Have you been loving her
Mm.
like you should? Have you been loving her as Christ loved the church? That is, he died for the church. And then he goes to the wife, have you respected your husband? And granted, if a husband is loving his wife the way that Christ loved the church, most times than not, she's going to respect him.
Right.
Because she fully trusts him.
Right.
But there's no, like, one thing fixes all. Man has to love a woman like Christ loved the church. Woman has to respect her husband. Both have to do their parts.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is the same with friendships, Christian relationships with each other. It takes both sides being understanding and waving the white flag. I mean, you hear the term, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
Oh,
And you
wow.
think about
Yeah.
that, it's like, okay, well, if somebody's not willing to wave that white flag, it is just going to be a blind world.
Right.
Like, how does anything get resolved if everybody digs their feet in and isn't willing to see what can I do better?
Right.
And I think that's kind of a hard part, thinking about like a solution. It's like, well, you could say like, well, this person has to do this, or this person has to do this, especially as Christians.
Right. I'm not gonna hang out with this person until they do this, and it's like, no.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
And that's coming back to being judged and judging others.
Right.
You're judging them because you want them to be a certain way before you will be around them.
Right.
You know, and you know it comes back to Christ. I mean, do you think he was? If he were to do that, he couldn't even be around the disciples then.
Right.
He wouldn't have even been around the disciples.
Yeah.
Because they all had their sins and struggles that they dealt with.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. I mean,
Even-
look at him saying, "Get away from me, Satan!" Like, that was just out blatant. Like, he did something so like mind-boggling that Jesus said, called him Satan, basically. Like, if he were to act on the, well, you hurt me, you did this.
And what was he crying on the cross? Forgive them, for they know not what they do.
And that is one of the most powerful things, I think, that, like, I remember all the time. I'm like, he says that to me, he says that to the whole world. They know not what they do. And he came to bring that revelation. He said that everybody will have heard
Mm-hmm.
the gospel. Everybody would have had a chance to see who he is. But without that, I mean, a dead man can't do anything without being revived.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do anything without that revelation. We are literally dead in our sins. And seeing that relation, that correlation, it's like we really are dead in our sins without Christ showing us, without that revelation, without him coming to us. We'd just be in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We would be dead beings.
Well, I mean, have you ever had the feeling of losing hope?
Yeah.
Now just imagine that without him. That would be every single minute, every single second of every single day.
I honestly don't know how people get through without his hope.
Mm-hmm.
And after losing Zach, that was one of my main things, because a lot of people were worried about me because of the fact that people can go one way or another when losing someone like that. And my thing was, I mean, other than the fact that he literally told me, I would want you to be happy and live your life. You know that I'll be happy in heaven and I'll see you again. Other than him telling me that, I told you that, right? Yeah, that he messaged me about that. I just kept it in my mind. I want to stay close to God because I want to see him again.
Right.
And it was God's comfort that I know he has a plan for me that kept me going, because I know that my days have a meaning, that my life has a meaning. Sometimes I lose sight of that, but then at the same time he brings my eyes back to that. And I often said, how do people get through a death like this without Christ?
Well, getting into talking about Zach and stuff like that, you want to see the true power of his grace, and his comfort is to look at Jennifer.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Through all of that,
Yeah.
she still was like, because how easy would it have been for her to be like, he took him away from me. I don't even want to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
But through it all she wanted to do was share the gospel.
She absolutely amazes me. I'm getting goosebumps even just thinking about it. But I remember her telling me about the bereavement groups and stuff, and how she couldn't take all the sadness just week after week with no healing.
Well, that goes right to like we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like she had that hope, and I know she's told us before, he's the only one she doesn't have to worry about. She knows where his heart was. He out blatantly talked about it all the time. She is sure of where he is, and to see that confidence in God is absolutely incredible to me. Like, the way that she stayed close to God through that kind of loss, that's something that I want to strive for.
Right.
And that's what Christian relationships
That's
should
a runner
be like.
you see in front of you.
Yeah.
But you're like, I want to be running as good as they can.
Yeah.
And
it's like...
And I think, too, talking about you feeling like we are going to stumble.
Right.
We're not on this perfect sidewalk running. We are on a jagged trail running to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
Okay? We're going to trip. And then I think what happens is when we trip, we fall flat. So we don't see what's in front of us and where we could be potentially. Right?
That hopelessness.
Right. So it's gonna happen. What happens after the fall is whether or not we push ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and keep going forward. We may not run right away, because stuff hurts, but we also are going to be moving forward to that direction.
Yeah, and better yet, we'll have Jesus right next to us if it's too hard to push ourselves up by ourselves. He'll be there giving us a hand, helping us up.
Have you seen that
Don't forget to
take a break.
Oh, that's funny. Great job. You've gone live for 90 minutes. Don't forget to take a break. That's funny.
It's reminding me, and I'd love to get this picture in my house somewhere, is when we were talking last week about Peter going onto the water and losing focus. And have you seen that picture where it looks like you're underwater and Jesus is standing on top of it with his hand in it?
I think I have, yeah.
To me, that's like what you're talking about. Because we've fallen down and he's like, here, let me get you up here. Let me help you dust yourself off.
Yeah.
you know.
And he's there to coach us
Right.
when we get back
Oh,
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's there going, keep your head up. Keep your posture straight. Keep that core engaged. Run on your toes. You got this.
You got a scratch? And grab some dirt. We got this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, to have that care and concern for when we do stumble, it's like, we definitely can look at that person ahead of us, but we shouldn't be yelling to that person to, hey,
Wait
how
up.
are you doing this? Like, give me your secrets. Like, I mean, definitely we can use the other people in the relationship, but those should be the people that are running next to us,
Right.
that are in the same moment, because we can use their advice, we can use Jesus talking in our ear, encouraging us, helping us. The Bible, essentially. Jesus running next to us is
That's
the
our
Word.
first aid kit right there.
Yeah.
For when we do fall. I think that's another cool thing to think about as well, is he's coaching us on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
He knows we're gonna fall.
Yeah.
That's why he has the first aid kit ready to go.
Yep.
You know? Like, oh yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But guess what? I'm still your coach.
Mm-hmm.
You think, could you imagine if it was like a coach would just give up on his players?
Oh my gosh. Now
No
that's a
games
sense
would
of
be played.
hopelessness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the point of playing the game?
Right. And it's like that feeling of hopelessness really does come from, and exactly like what I was saying earlier, when I can't see like what steps to take, I get a panic attack. Like I get anxiety. And I feel like, and that's misguided. That's 100% like, I need to look to God. But in the same way, if somebody didn't have that in their lives, didn't have God in their lives, it's like, how do you even move forward? Like, how do you go forward with no hope of anything more, of knowing how to get through stuff? And granted, some people turn to drugs, alcohol, sex, like those kinds of things. And
That's just a distraction too.
yeah, and those are things that it's like they look like they're going to help you, and then they just end up putting a cover on something way worse. It's like putting a little bitty Band-Aid over a gnarly gash.
Right.
Like,
Right. It may
You
hold
might-
that part of it together, but
Yeah.
it's still gushing out blood.
yeah. And it's like, that's exactly what those things are. They act like they're going to help you, when in reality you're just going to get worse and worse and worse, because you're ignoring the deeper issues.
You need to stop bleeding.
Yeah. And I mean, Jesus is the best healer. He knows our body. He created our bodies. He knows exactly what we need for that.
Right.
And
But it's funny too, even speaking on that aspect too, is we don't give our bodies enough credit for healing it, like healing it, and he's the one that created that.
right.
You know what I mean? The cut I got from building the chairs, it's starting to
Oh
heal.
yeah.
Doesn't look the prettiest, but it's healing.
Uh-huh.
But it's doing that.
Yeah. You
He
should
made
see
us.
the bruises that Smokey's given me on my legs.
Mm.
I have a gnarly one right here. I'm like, I didn't realize I had that until I took a shower. I'm
Don't
like,
you love it? Or the worst part of finding the bruise is when you push and you're like, wow, why does that hurt so much? And then you pull up your pants and you're like, and that's, no, you especially. Where did that bruise come from?
but I have like 4 more up here. I'm like, was that really him? Like, how did he get the side of my leg? I mean, I kind of get this one, but this,
Toes.
probably
Oh.
toes. Yeah, but it's like, it doesn't help that I get iron deficient and need to eat more steak, but
Ooh, steak.
yeah, I saw a meme on Facebook today that was like a whole like steak platter, and it was for steak lovers, and I'm like, I really wish I could pull you out of the meme right now and just
Can I be
eat
like
that whole platter.
be like Willy Wonka? chocolate vision or whatever he called that, when it was like on the TV, but you could go out and reach and grab it.
Heck yeah.
Oh man, could you imagine that?
100%.
Smell-o-vision.
Oh my gosh, I'd be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of trouble.
Oh yeah. Imagine having to work at a steakhouse. I mean, just yeah.
I wouldn't be iron deficient, that's for sure.
Hey, what are you doing today? What do you think I'm doing? I'm doing another steak, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's necessary. I think it's necessary to say you need that help. And that's going back to how do you do something about it?
Right.
When somebody is going like, I can do it, they're trying to get up themselves, but they literally have no energy left.
Right.
It's like, and that's what happens, I think, when people get in these friendships and it's not working out and they feel hurt from this or hurt from that. Each side is feeling hurt from one or from the other. And it's like, okay, the only thing you can control is yourself.
Right.
You can't control other people.
But even sometimes that's even hard to do as well.
Right.
Controlling yourself.
And that's where it becomes so necessary to go to God about it. And it's like, okay, well, and something I always pray about myself is like, God, show me. If I'm being this way or that way or this way, whatever, show me.
Right.
Lay it on my heart, because I don't want to have a heart of stone.
Mm.
I want you to break open any stone in my heart and show me where I can be better. But each party needs to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you focus so much on the other person and what hurt they've done to you, like, you're just going to keep ignoring that log in your eye.
Right.
It's like, and that just makes that come even more full circle. It's like, when you look at other people without even looking at yourself, you're completely ignoring your own hurt.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to take care of it. Like, you got a log in your eye. Like, it's only a matter of time before that wears on you.
Yeah, I can't imagine log. I mean, you think about, every time I think about the log,
Yeah.
when I'm building furniture and I get like sawdust in my eye, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, just sit there for a good 5-10 minutes trying
I
to get it out.
know, the littlest things can really irritate eyes. I mean, mine were just irritated from shampoo in the shower. I'm like, really? Yeah. I'm surprised my eyes weren't all red from the shampoo when we started videoing. But, and funny enough, I just thought about it, the part right after Matthew 7 verses 1 through 5, I think it's like the next two verses. It talks about not casting your pearls before swine.
Ooh.
Yeah. So not only is it saying, like, don't judge people before you take the log out of your own eye, but it's also saying, be careful where you cast your pearls.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's really interesting when you think about it. And we do have the ability to choose where we put our time and effort into.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we really need the wisdom of God. Like, we can choose to put our time into someone, but is it casting our pearl before swine?
Mm-hmm.
And not to call people swine. Like, that sounds really harsh. I mean, the Bible does say it, but like, at the same time, if they're not going to take it in, realize that, and go, well, I can look at myself, I can work on myself, and I can continue on my race.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if something's hurting you, and they're going to rot your own fruit, that's using God's wisdom and His discernment to go like, okay, yeah, I really gotta get my focus off of that, because I've got this log in my eye that I need to take out, and this just isn't going to work. And there are things like that. Like, everything has a time and place. And something that I found out a lot in life is that really nothing is permanent. Like, the world is constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say nothing, that's an overgeneralization, but a lot of things are not permanent. A lot of friends have their time and place in your life before they've moved on to something else.
Right.
And that's hard for some people to get, like, accustomed to. Like, God brings people into our lives, and they might be like a burning flame, just whoop, in and out.
Right.
But they still have their purpose. And I think that's a big thing also, and it's something my grandma always talked about, like, seeing God's purpose and stuff. I mean, even, like, I don't know, 3 months before she passed away, she was talking about, I still have a purpose here. She would do things for the family. She would give to the church. She would give to family members. She would be there to help comfort a family member. And she's like, no, this just shows me I still have purpose.
Mm.
And she's like, the day that I don't have purpose is the day that I go home. I absolutely 100% see everything she's done looking to God's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
She was the best about that. If something wasn't going right, if it was a little wonky, she'd sit and pray. She's like, I don't see his purpose, but there's something that he's doing here. So I'm going to wait to see what that purpose is.
And an awesome thing too, and I love it too because it happens with me, especially with like Papa Joe,
Mm-hmm.
is, and I'm sure you're gonna see it more and more often, especially now that she is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Is people are gonna be like, oh, that's something your grandmother would have done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Do you know how amazing it makes you feel? Like, especially I know how it makes me feel when I'm like, when I hear somebody tell me, oh, that's what Papa Joe would have done.
Mm-hmm.
There is no better feeling of success than
Right.
hearing those words.
Yeah. And it was incredible because when we went into the hospital for her heart surgery, we went in and she had like all the nurses laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Grandma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She just had that sense of humor. She had that light to her. And when she wasn't doing well and they were saying that she was iffy if she would make it or not, they were just about in tears because they're like, there's something about her. They're like, we talked to her before she went back and she just seems like a special woman.
Mm.
They're like, we are hoping that she makes it through the surgery. Like, she seems really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, she is. She absolutely is.
It's that ripple effect.
And then after she passed away, after they couldn't save her, there were nurses crying at her bedside. There were people saying that they are so sad that she didn't make it through. And even in that loss, I was sitting there going like, that's my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
That is a woman that helped raise me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super close to my grandma all growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I hung on almost everything she said. Like, I learned a lot from her. And if I could even take an ounce of what she's shown me as a Christian woman, I would be happy.
See, you got to see a runner being cheered on by people watching her run and cheering her on.
Mm-hmm.
You got to see that firsthand,
Yeah,
and that's what you're striving to be.
yeah. It's scary, but it's also so motivating. And I mean, that's the hope for everybody in the situations with Christian friendships. It's like, I pray that they're able to see the purpose in meeting those people and having them in their lives. I know, like, our church, and I think this is probably why it's so, like, predominant in my mind, is our pastors get calls. So after so many years, well, even like fewer years, sometimes they'll get a call and they'll say, like, they'll reject the call. Sometimes it'll be sooner, sometimes it'll be 7, 8 years down the road. A lot of them don't stay much longer than like 7 to like 9 years maybe. But the reason for that and for the constant changing is they have their purpose at that church. It's like one of our pastors was really good with technology, and he got all our video system going to do live streaming at the church. That was right before COVID.
Oh, wow.
So we had live streaming during COVID that he could set up and just do the service sermons online.
Perfect.
So with all of the lockdown stuff and with all the elderly people, we had that going. And it's like, God helped our church by sending this pastor. His job was done. Now we have a new pastor coming in that's looking at mission, like, he does missionary work. And his wife, I love Sarah, she's from Switzerland.
Nice.
Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden, my bad, Sweden.
One of the swishes.
Yeah.
Switzerland.
She has a very thick Swedish accent. And I'm pretty sure that's how they met, was like him doing missionary and meeting her in Sweden. But they're very much like in the community and looking at trying to bring more people into the church, which is really helpful because our church is a lot of older people and they're dying off. Like, I hate to say it, but like there's
For lack of better words.
Yeah. There are a lot of people in our synod
Being
are
sent home. Let's call it. Being sent
going home. Yeah.
Going home.
There's a lot of people that we're losing in church, and it's heartbreaking to see like the people that we're losing, but at the same time they're trying to reach out to the other people in the city, and it's like that's what we need right now. And so it's really fascinating to see like what's needed. And I think that that's when those people come alongside us, it's what we need. It's what we need at that moment. God knows our every need. And the amazing and almost imperceptible part of it is that God sees my life. He sees this person's life. He lets things happen to end up side by side because he knows that it's going to help us. And then they go out of our lives, and then somebody that he also knows their life will match up perfectly to bring something into my life and hopefully me into their lives. Like the kind of thought, the kind of view that God has to let that happen that way, to give people exactly what they need at just the right time for this person's life to become exactly what it needs to become, because it might line up with someone else's to help them through something that they're going through. It's mind-boggling. And then you go, you're doing this all for me.
How often have you sent someone a verse and they're like, that's exactly what I needed to hear?
Yeah.
You
I
don't
love
know
those
why
moments.
you did. You don't know why.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, you're telling me to send this to somebody. And I'm gonna send it. And a lot of times it's exactly what they needed, and you don't know why, but you did it.
Yeah.
You were obedient, and you were able to show like, okay,
Well, and that goes to show where that obedience and where that submission to God really comes in, because it's like, I know a lot of people think like, oh, well, you believe in someone that like controls your life and this and that, and it's like, no, the very opposite. He gives us free will. He gives us free will because he doesn't want people to just mindlessly follow him.
Do you say that to people that are in the military?
Right.
They have a free will to do that.
Yeah.
But they're just following. I mean, we're following orders. It
Mhm.
sounds very stern and controlling and everything like
Right.
that, but it's to better our lives
Mhm. Well,
and our community even too.
right. And what kind of love is forced love? What is love without it being the person's choice to love?
It's funny that you say that because when you're saying nothing's permanent, having a daughter, definitely watch cartoons, and I'm thinking of Frozen 2 when Olaf, right?
Mhm.
He's like, I just thought of something that's permanent. Love is permanent. And then here we are talking about.
Yep.
how-
Yep. God is the one thing that is permanent. He is the rock that we can stand on because it doesn't move. And that's why we look to him and not to people.
Well, and it's funny too because if we think about, with that movie, script or whatever, is love is permanent, but God is love.
Mhm. Yeah.
So in that same aspect, it's God is permanent, love is permanent, God is love.
Mhm.
It's that whole cycle.
Yep. And it's crazy to think about the fact that we get to choose. We can choose. We can choose our demise. We can also choose to have him in our lives helping us through those things, being obedient to him, because we understand we don't know
Right.
everything. And when we have the ability to choose that, we don't always choose what's good. And a little fun fact, because it's in my mind, I think it was one of my theology books, I think. But it was talking about how God is this perfect being and this and that. Of course he can't sin, whatever. So why would he create beings that had the capability of sinning? And it asked, how do you know something is good? Instant thought, well, it's not bad. You have to have the opposite.
You're right.
Being good also means not being bad.
Right.
You have to be able to do the good thing, or else there would only be good things.
Mm-hmm.
But the ability to do bad, that's the only way that there can be good.
You don't know darkness until you see light.
Exactly. And so that goes to show God chooses good
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
And
God is good
Right.
because he chooses to be good. Jesus chose to do good. He chose to not sin.
Well, and it's funny because when you're talking about we choose what we can do. We choose how to run.
Yeah.
Okay. We choose whether or not we want to run.
Mm-hmm.
He's coached us on how to run the best.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's funny when we talk about running. I instantly think about that Friends episode where Rachel and Phoebe go running in Central Park, and Rachel starts doing the proper way of running and stuff
Mhm.
like this, and just oh, I look like a jogger.
Right.
And of course Phoebe, she runs like a kid running down the park, just exerting
Yeah.
herself to do that.
Yeah.
Having a blast doing it.
Right.
But in the end, what is that doing? That's exerting yourself, right?
Yeah. It's exhausting. You're
Right.
using
It may
more
seem
muscles.
fun at the time. It may seem fun at the time,
Uh-huh.
running that way.
Right.
But to be able to finish the marathon,
Mm-hmm.
the coach is telling you how to do it.
Right. And that's the hard part of the things that we get distracted by. And I think a lot of things that people can even get distracted by what they know is the wrong thing when trying to create relationships. And that goes to the guilty person. They can get distracted by what they've done wrong rather than listening to, this is where you're at now, and this person is just another runner. Like, we're just gonna keep running. And granted, sometimes the people running with us can sometimes want to do good and do more harm. They can rarely actually help us if we take in their help rather than getting distracted by the shortcomings. Because I don't know about you, but like, there's times that when I'm focusing on something else and somebody tries to help me, like, I get kind of snippy.
Like, don't tell me how to do this, I'm doing it already by myself.
Right, and it's like, okay, I'm trying here. Like, I'm really trying, and it's like just that extra voice that it's like, oh my gosh, like, just let me think for a second.
Right. It's a distracting voice and not a guiding voice.
Right, and sometimes that's because you're so distracted by what you're focusing on that's not good. That's like, that's already frustrating you. And it's like, let it go. Like, if it's frustrating you, let it go and refocus your mind. And then you'll see, like, oh, maybe that can help me.
Right.
Whereas, like, if you just let that eat at you, then, like, you're going at this person that's, like, trying to help and trying to say, like, don't worry about that. Like, just, I know what it's like. Like, just keep on the path. You got this.
Well, it's almost like we're in our minds thinking they're judging us. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, they're not.
Right.
We're getting frustrated because we think they're judging us because we're putting that mindset of they're telling us we're doing wrong and that we need to do it their way. When really they're like, you're doing it, but you just need to do it this way.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying you're doing it wrong, but I'm just saying this would make it easier.
Right. They're trying to give a helpful tool, and I've been in one of those situations. That's like, that's not a wrong way, but I see another side to this, and you can do it that way, but it kind of hurts other people if you do it this way. So how about, like, just kind of shifting, not completely undoing, but finding another way.
Right.
And that's something that I've had to learn how to do, like, as a business owner and being in a big family and stuff. It's like, sometimes my ideas, like, I want it to be my idea. I want it to, like, go good because it's come to my mind. But at the same time, like, I have to listen to other people's input. It's like some of the designs I came up for like, my photography. And it's like, I really like the design. I'm proud of the design. Like, I'm proud of how far I came. And then my grandma would say, like, well, this is kind of hard to read. And then I get discouraged. And it's like, okay, well, shoot, like, now I feel like a failure. Like, I take it all on myself. Right. And it's like, but she makes a good point. Like, if she has a hard time seeing it, I need to be able to, like, I need other people to be able to see it if they have bad eyesight.
Yeah, right.
So I do need to fix it. And ultimately, with those little critiques, the final outcome becomes even better than what I originally had.
Right.
And it's forced me to think outside of the box, to think outside of myself into a larger picture and go, well, shoot, maybe there's something to this.
Right.
Maybe I do need to listen, because sometimes things aren't just cut and dry. And it's hard when people are like, well, what about my way? Are you saying my way is bad? And it's like, well, I'm saying that this kind of hurts. And I know that this could hurt other people. And I know that this hurts me. I'm not saying that you're necessarily wrong. I'm just asking for another way.
Right.
And at that kind of determines the relationship also.
Well, they have to be able to see your point of view, understand that you're coming at it with love, and take criticism and that's where, like you were saying before, all in gentleness, being gentle in how you say things. You know, if you can be gentle and they can take it without feeling judged, and you know, if you're doing it and it is coming off where you're not trying to show that you're judging them, then if they feel judged still after the fact, that's them working through their own sins too.
Right.
And as you as the person coming to them, you also have to be patient in that too. Because if they are feeling judged, know that if you are coming with it gentle, then maybe they are dealing with it harder than you actually can see them portraying it.
Right.
So that all comes back to, with gentleness comes patience. So be patient with them.
Right.
Reassure them that they're not being judged by you, because we know as Christians that we are not the judge.
Right.
If they come at you snippety, then you can be like, okay, I hit a nerve, but let me get back to the gentle of it.
Right.
Let me get back to the whole point. I don't want you to, feel judged. And even, call it out. Call it as what it is. Are you feeling judged right now? Because I promise you that's not my goal.
Right.
I'd like to discuss this with you. I'd like to have a conversation about this. If you are feeling judged, if you're feeling hurt by me coming to you about this, maybe we should do this at a later time, but I would like to talk about this.
Right.
Because if you are struggling with it, and I have the capabilities of helping you or finding help for you,
right,
I may not be the tool you need right now.
Right.
But I promise you, if we pray on it, we will find it.
Yeah.
We will find that relationship that you need to have in your life.
Right. And I think that's where it gets hard with non-believers. Finding those friendships with non-believers and trying to come to them about something that's hurtful, and there's no mutual authority. God is our authority. The Bible is our authority. When somebody of the world is living of the world, their views, their morals are set by them or the world's standards. So those could be anywhere.
Right.
And asking them to get on the same page as you when something hurts is extremely difficult, and it's that much harder to realize, like, it's harder for them to have that, yeah, I need to reflect and change, with you saying I need to reflect and change, because there's nothing to take to them. You can try to preach to them, you can try to relate to them with God's word and share God's word and his goodness with them and say, like, this is why I believe this way. God is love. I believe that he wants us to have relationships with people. I believe that this is a good way to go about it because God tells us that. And I've seen it be that much better for people's lives. But the truth is that they still might stick to their own morals and their own worldly standards. And it's that much harder to find that common ground of my authority is founded in God and my authority is founded in the world. And a lot harder to come to an agreement of like, well, this is wrong. Well, I don't think this is wrong. Well, God says this, I don't care what God says.
Yeah, and I think even with like those relationships in itself too, is a lot of the times what will happen is non-believers will come to you and you'll just say, hey, I think this is wrong, and they instantly think that like, okay, we can't hang out anymore, I can't be around you. Whereas we as believers also need to find the discernment of like, I can still be around you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with what you do as far as this aspect goes.
Right.
But you also have to make sure that that same thing that you disagree with isn't going to bring you down as well.
Right.
You can't reflect on it the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it
Yeah.
is, I mean, it is to know it's there, but to reflect on it, it's not good for you and that relationship. Because then that drives a wedge between the relationship, and that doesn't help anybody then
Right.
too. And it all comes back to feeling judged by another Christian, and they're telling us how I should live, and I don't believe in what they believe as well.
Right. And I think that's where it gets hard, is a lot of people have a hard time understanding that you can have a difference of opinions and that be okay.
Yeah.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. It's, you see it a lot in like politics especially. Like,
It was getting there, it was coming.
I mean, I think everybody could have seen that coming inside. Like, you have a difference of opinion, and a lot of people get mad. And I mean, as a Christian, that's one thing that you kind of have to get used to, is you're going to have a difference of opinion and have to be okay with other people not agreeing with you. Because that, like, a lot of people don't agree with my view as a Christian, especially when they have a worldly view or a different religion or whatever.
So the biggest, I think it's funny, like as far as point of view,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not politics, is, and it's funny because we see memes about this, you see pictures about this, is pineapple on pizza. Some people are like, no, pineapple doesn't belong on there. I love pineapple on pizza.
Oh, that's funny, I don't.
See?
Yep, I don't like
No, I gotta go. You don't know. I gotta go.
I'm done with this podcast.
Yeah, we're over. You don't like pineapple. Well, that's just the how it comes to. It's like,
Right.
yeah, you feel like you don't like that.
Uh-huh.
Well, I do.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I can't talk to you anymore.
Right.
Just means if we order pizza, it's gonna be half with, half without.
Right. Yeah. Well,
But that's
a
just
lot
how
of
it goes.
people try to like talk someone into something like that. Like, what? You don't like it? Why not?
Right.
And that's what you hear a lot of stuff. Well, why not? Like, and I'll usually say like, I don't like my fruit warm. Like, I think it's a texture thing really, because it's like kind of mushy. But it's like, it's the same with drinking alcohol. Or in my case, not drinking alcohol. A lot of people, when I say, oh, I don't drink, it'll usually be followed by like, you're not drinking tonight, or you don't drink at all. Or usually like at all. I'm like, not at all. Like, and for one, I really hate the taste of alcohol. Like, I'm super sensitive to it. Like, I can taste the tiniest amount in something, and I'm like, I don't need it for anything.
Right.
I don't want to get a buzz.
Right.
Like, I basically act like I have a buzz without having a buzz. Like, I'm kind of a spaz. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny that we talk about this because it's what I do for a living.
Mhm. Yeah. And
Being
a
a bartender,
lot of people will ask, like, well, why not? Well, why do you drink?
Well, I've even had that too because I've recently decided, it's just, especially with my health issues and stuff like that, is I don't want to, I relied on that. I did.
Right.
You know, I was dealing with a lot of issues in my life, and all I wanted to do was numb it.
Mhm.
That's all I wanted to do. And it's not to say that I mean, you don't like the flavor of it.
Mhm.
I do find a joy in the flavor of it.
Mhm.
But there's also a discernment of like, do you really need, you know, because you know, even being a bartender, sometimes you have to taste the cocktail to
Right.
see if it's good or not.
Right.
And you know, it's called straw testing, where you just taste a little bit and you taste it.
Mhm.
And have to know that it pairs well with certain things that you put together. You know, and what does it need, and what it's kind of like with cooking, but with alcohol.
Right.
And so and it's funny too, because even, I mean, I think we were dancing or we were at the X, and I went on, because, you know, enjoying the flavor, I can enjoy a non-alcoholic beer because
Right.
I enjoy the flavor.
Yeah.
You know, there's tonics, there's all kinds of stuff. There's even alcohol that's non-alcoholic, which
Right.
is completely crazy. But it's all about the flavor, you know what I mean? So, and I still crack up because I went up to the bar when we were at the X, and the bartender, NA? And I'm like, yeah, you know, I quit drinking, you know, and I haven't drank in... What?
What?
So I quit drinking, now I gotta work? I don't get, this is, you know. But it can be mind-boggling to people where you can get to those things, and that's where it comes back to the people judging you, and
Right.
you know, like, and that also gives it an opportunity, and gives me the opportunity to talk to people about like, yeah, and I mean, I'm a bartender first off,
Mhm.
and second off, I've been down that road. I've done that, drinking to where you're numb and you're doing all this stuff. But I found out that I don't need it.
Yeah, non-believers and the opinions of people, that it's hard when people go like, well, why not?
Yeah.
And that's when you have to get into like, well, it's what I want for my life.
Right.
And you have to like, I'm okay with you guys drinking.
Right.
Like, you can be okay with me drinking, and for me it's a testimony. Like,
Right.
I don't need buzz. Like, this is how I live my life. My dad and my grandpa were alcoholics. Like, my grandpa was raging alcoholic, but he completely turned his life around. But it can be, that can be for me too.
Right.
Like, it's a possibility that it could run in my blood,
Right.
and I
where
could
you could
easily
get
become
manipulated by that scenario.
right. And so it's like, if I don't like the taste and I don't want to, then I might as well not drink it. But
Why not? Don't give yourself the opportunity to stumble into that. You're taking the initiative to not become that person, and not
Right.
even having the opportunity to become that person either.
right. And I think that's probably an important part with people who are looking at their own lives and friendships and stuff like that, and that's really what they need to do.
Yeah.
Is see what's good for you. Don't try to force it on other people, but realize that it is your issue and your issue alone,
Right.
and take it on for what you believe it is. If you think that person is really judging you, then maybe have a talk with them, whatever. But if it is your own guilt, then that's something that you have to carry yourself. So.
Well, and I think in that aspect as well, if you feel guilty, or not guilt, but feeling judged by others, and you don't tell them, how are they going to know that?
Right. Yeah.
And if
That's just not fair.
Right. So if you talk to them about that, or say, hey, I felt a little judged on what you said. Can we talk about it?
Right.
And be open-minded when you do that too, because, you know, don't be so like, you made me feel judged, you're going to continue to make me feel judged, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Right.
And if you go into that scenario like that, nothing's going to come good of it.
Right.
You're not going to move forward. You're not going to build a relationship that could potentially be a tool that you could use in your life later on.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I think we definitely touched on a lot.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to just people seeing things for themselves. And honestly, I'm excited for what comes next week because Grace kind of pulled into this
Right.
from last week, and then this week was about the judge not, and we touched on a lot that kind of correlated with both.
Yeah, I like how they kind of, well, and that's, it all comes back to everything's gonna tie together.
Right.
You know, and like we were talking about how some people are on different trails and they seem to match up and you needed that person there. It's the same thing with our first aid kit here.
Right.
It may not work for you now, and that's also another thing too. You could read a verse and the very next year read the same verse and it says something completely different to you.
Right. Yeah. And so we'll definitely pick something out for next week.
Right.
We don't have it picked out yet, but for this week we would love to know more. So let us know in the comments what you thought, and give us more to even think about and more to touch on, and any ideas for future topics, because we definitely want to keep going with the things that are pertinent and the things that are really urgent to talk about as Christian people, as people not of this world.
Right.
Because it's hard being in this world with these issues as people not of this world. So let us know in the comments below, and make sure that you subscribe and like so that you can see us do more of these podcasts and flubber along. No, I think we've been doing really good.
Right.
But,
I think it's going to continue to get better and better. I think the more hiccups we work through, you know, these are just little hurdles that he's given us the strength to get over. You know, he's teaching us how to run.
Yeah.
And we're on a very good marathon. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be amazing. It's exciting to see who comes and enjoys the marathon with us.
Yep.
Gets to
And
see
the lives.
Right,
Yep.
right, and that's, you know, becoming more and more of a enjoyable thing. It's fun to know, especially with the lives. I think knowing that just because we are not of this world, there are people in this world that are trying to be not of this world as well.
Right. Absolutely. So we will see you guys next time, and make sure you keep in touch. Make sure you check back with us for next week's episode, which the topic will be soon to be determined.
Right.
But but we're glad that anybody who watches this has watched this, and excited for all the future topics. So until next week, much love.